Back here, 615 Sessions podcast on the GetBeast.com Zoom line. Chris Blair of the Listening Room Cafe is kind enough to stop by on today's show. Now, what the people listening at home do not know, Chris, is that you and I have already had this conversation before, but my incompetence has caused us to reunite. But I'm very happy to see you regardless. Thanks for hanging out.
Same to you, man.
So Chris is here on behalf of the Listening Room and a movement that our friends at Two Rivers Ford have put into place to try and keep places like the Listening Room on their feet and with their support of the community through the Drive the Music Nashville initiative. It's something that I am very happy to have helped participate in. If you do not know anything about this, then I have done a poor job. But you know that you can go to drivethemusicnashville.com. You can get one of these T-shirts, and you can purchase a T-shirt that would be the cost of going to one of these venues to help keep local independent music going in Nashville. And Chris is here to kind of inform people about what it's been like to operate one of these local independent music venues in the midst of a pandemic. Chris, if we could lay out for the people just kind of what it's been like for you guys the last 9 months as you try and navigate through what is very, very difficult times to navigate through.
Yeah, Buck, it's been a challenge, I think everybody feels it, right? But, March 14th was our last day that we were open. Back then it was like, all right, well, we're going to have a 2-week vacation. We got a quarantine, not sure what this is, all of that. And then, as you know, that turned into months and months and months. And it's, the music industry was, the first ones to really get hit the hardest. And I think there were going to be, the last industry really to come back fully. So you've got, thousands of independent music venues across the country, and there's 15 of us just here in Nashville. And it's where all of the big artists that everybody knows from radio, you go back and talk to any of them, they got their start in a small independent venue, right? So, it's just the not having the crystal ball of when this goes away. And, our rent doesn't go away. Our utilities don't go away. We've got staff that, key staff that we, have tried to keep on. And then at the same time, we've got, servers and bartenders and cooks and, all of this that, they're family and they worked for us for a long time. And, when we're not open or we're not open in full capacity, everybody's struggling. So yeah, it's been really tough to say the least.
And so many different angles to approach with this, because what you're talking about is so many different, so it's so interconnected. It's such a wide web of people that go into a music event being hosted at a place like the Listening Room, because you don't necessarily think top of mind, okay, well, it's not just about the band, it's about the people that travel with the band, it's about the support staff in the Listening Room, it's about the people who make sure that there are food, drinks, serving staff, all of these things that just completely fall by the wayside as this thing has continued now for the better part of 2020. And thank God we're in the last month of this thing, so we can finally, at least with some kind of hopefulness, look towards the future and do away with all things 2020. I think everybody would be happy to do so at this point. But you guys have obviously, you've been open for quite some time since you moved downtown in 2008, but you started out in Franklin in 2006. How different is your job today? And obviously it's probably become much different over the course of the last 9 months, but how much different is your job and your day-to-day operations at the Listening Room today as it was when you started? And what have you had to learn how to adapt and improve on as you guys have tried to navigate through this thing?
Well, gosh, how my job is different. Buck, when we first moved to downtown, Cummings Station, you remember that place. I was the dishwasher. I was the cook, I was the bartender. I literally would be behind the bar, and I would take somebody's drink order and food order, and then I would run back into the kitchen to flip a burger. And then, I mean, I was doing it all back then. So yeah, my as far as like what I do, that's changed as we've grown, and I've got fantastic staff. But yeah, through kind of through this last 8-9 months, it's really the uncertainty. What I do on a daily basis is manage the numbers, work with the artists, work with booking agents, and when we don't know from literally week to week how many seats we're going to be able to have in the venue. It's impossible to to plan. And I think that's the biggest frustration for me is, something that I've become pretty good at in running the business. We've got, on a pre-COVID, we would have 300 people in the venue for 2 shows a night, 6 days a week. When we were closed down, and then we got to reopen, but it was, like 25% capacity, and, then it was 50% capacity, but nobody could sit at the bar. And that 50% capacity, you've still got to have tables that are 6 feet apart. So it's not really 50% capacity, and now it's 50% capacity, but no more than 100 people. So literally that's how things have changed for me, is that I've just got to navigate this. And it's also, it's very hard to get the information a lot of times. And it's confusing, and, just trying to figure out, how to keep things going, how to staff the right way. We're talking, New Year's Eve coming up. We usually do something big on New Year's Eve, and it's like, well, I mean, do we even have a show? We're going to, but we're not going to be open late. Number one, because we can't, the rules won't allow us to. But, even if we could, it's like, we're trying to also be responsible. So it's that fine line of, we have to pay the bills. And if things don't turn around and things don't get better for all of us independent venues, very quickly, we are very quickly running out of money. And that's just the truth of it. You've already got venues across the country, iconic venues, that have closed their doors for good. And it's really sad. So, yeah, it's just, that's the biggest thing for me, is just the uncertainty and figuring out how to manage something that you have no control over.
The way that the rules change week to week, the planning aspect of it is something that goes so unnoticed for people like me, who just go and attend, or under normal circumstances go and attend a concert at a music venue. But everything that goes into it, how you have to continually adapt over the course of this thing, has to be absolutely insane. And if you, of course, want to help Chris and the Listening Room Cafe and the 14 other music venues that are in the Music Venue Alliance of Nashville, drivethemusicnashville.com. I want to talk, though, because the first time we had this conversation, I was trying to learn, okay, what could I have done better to make it not so depressing about the state of local music here in Nashville? And I thought to myself, okay, what I messed up on is I didn't ask you, Chris, about how it was that you came to decide that you wanted to be in the business of music after starting as a singer-songwriter here in Middle Tennessee, and then transitioning into one of the most successful independent music venues here in Nashville. So I wanted to get more background from you on the Listening Room, on your story, and how that all came to be. So if you could kind of start from the jump and just kind of give people a little idea of your story, because it's not common, but there are so many stories like that, I feel like, here in Nashville, that kind of weave the tapestry of what it is, what makes us Music City.
Yeah, thank you. I think you're right. I think the being a part of MVAN, Music Venue Alliance Nashville, as you said, every single member of our group, every single venue, they all have a story, and I think that's what makes all of us here in Nashville so unique and different than other places around the world. Really, is because Nashville is just such a big music city. Um, and I think more people are starting to figure this out, that it's not country music. We at the Listening Room do a lot of country music, but that's because we're a writers venue, and obviously a lot of country music gets written in Nashville. Um, but it's such a great place for music in general, all genres, and all of us, I think, have that tie to it. So my story, I started singing when I was 6 years old. It's in my blood. It's all I've ever done is music. I played sports. I've always been a sports lover. I still am. I'm a season ticket holder for the Titans, and I love that. But music was always in my blood. Um, I I put 3 songs out to radio, 98, 99. Did the tour. Had some very minor success, and through that, I wrote songs, but I never co-wrote songs. I didn't understand what co-writing was. So for the listeners out there that may not know that, it's basically what it sounds like. You go in a room and you write with other people. So when I first moved to Nashville, I had a label, the old Disney label, Lyric Street Records. Guy's still a dear friend and mentor, Doug Howard, was running that over there, and he brought me to Nashville. We started working together. He started, pushing me to write with other people. So basically, that's how the Listening Room got started. I started getting in a room, figuring out what co-writing was all about. Fell in love with chasing lyrics and writing songs. And then at the same time, Buck, I realized that, back where I'm from in St. Louis, I thought I was pretty awesome, opening up for every major label act that came through. And then I moved to
Right.
Nashville. I was like, oh man, there's a lot of good people here.
Yeah.
So, I have the gift and the curse, I guess, of a great ear, and quickly realized that I was good, but I wasn't great in a world of greatness in Nashville. So, same time I was falling in love with the writing of songs, I was also living in a 12-passenger van with my band, traveling all over, playing in crappy places and crappy hotels or motels that we're sleeping in. And I was like, hey, you know what? I like this side of the business better. And yeah, I mean, that's what happened. And then I started playing around town at different writers' rooms, and felt like I wanted to create something that had incredible sound. Felt like you were just sitting at home with your friends and in the family room. So I teamed up with Bose, and we've got sponsorship with Bose, and so the sound quality is always top notch. But I think the thing for me is that I've lived on both sides of the coin. So the artists and the songwriters, it's not they are a part of my business. They're the part of my business, right? That's why people come. But to me, it's not. It's more of like their family. So I know what they're going through. I know how hard it is to be a writer and not get cuts. I know what it's like to be a new artist living in a van. So for me, that was, I think that was the difference is, just trying to build something that, was just cool. And it's been fun, 15 years.
No doubt, successful and cool and communal, right? You want to allow the audience to feel like they're part of that creative process, which is one of the things that I love so much about going to see a show at the Listening Room. But there's a variety of different things that you said that I want to hit on. Because first and foremost, writing is something that I do on a regular basis, but there's very different kinds of writing that we're talking about. I can pump out whatever trash I'm going to pump out about the Tennessee Titans. And because I work on the internet, it gets published, and I suffer while I write, but there's not that fear of rejection in a way that people in the music industry have. And maybe I shouldn't call it a suffering, even though I think writing, of the things that, at least from my perspective, that I do, is the thing that is most time consuming, that provokes the most thought, that requires the most attention to detail. From your perspective, having been through this and seeing so many different artists and groups go through this, how can you kind of relate to the audience what exactly goes into the creative process of coming up with a good song?
Well, it's really like therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I joke around that you don't really meet a lot of unhappy songwriters, because we get to go in a room every day, and if we're on a high, we talk about it and we write about it. If there's something going on, COVID, whatever, things at home, life in general, we talk about it, and that's where some of the best songs come from. So, the process, I think, is different for everybody. Some writers that I go in a room with are great lyricists, and some are great guitar players that have the perfect riff, or the great melody, the cool chords that a lot of people don't know, and things like that. So I think that's what's fun about getting in a room with so many different people, is you find out who you blend with. Two guys that are great lyricists in a room that don't play guitar or keyboards very well probably aren't going to come up with that killer number one song. You get that mix right, and that's where you start to see these pockets of teams that are all of a sudden you've got these same writers on a handful of the top 10 songs all the time, because it's just it works. But I think it's just it's going in and you start talking about ideas. And I think the other thing that writers have, and I'm sure you do too, is you're always listening. So when you're not thinking about writing for your show or for a song, your ears are always open. And I might be sitting at a restaurant with my wife, and I hear somebody at the table behind me just say something that I'm like, what did they say? And I get my phone out and I write down this little, like, well, that's a song, thank you. And so it's things like that. But it's it's different for everybody.
For sure. I will try to think, the next time I write an article about a backup running back, I'll try to think of it as therapeutic, rather than whatever other obscenities are running through my head at the time. With your background and how you came to decide that the business aspect of it was probably the place that you wanted to spend more of your time, so many people, at least in the music industry, have had similar experiences where they're living multiple people in a van and traveling across the country and playing at small venues. What's the best venue that you've played at first? We'll give people the feel good on the front end. Then what's the worst venue that you've played in? Because I know you got both.
Gosh, that's tough. Man, probably the best that comes to mind, I don't even think it's there anymore, but there was this club outside of St. Louis. It was a smaller club. I've played a bunch of fairs with 15, 20,000 people and stuff like that, and those are all cool, really good experiences. But I think probably the funnest, best memory for me is this club that was outside of St. Louis called Little Bit of Texas, and then it changed its name to In Cahoots. And I actually think it's a church now, maybe, or I think it was a furniture store, and now it's a church. But
the music was so good it turned it into a religious experience. There you
go.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. That just because it was close to my hometown where I grew up. It was when I had some songs that were on the charts on radio. You know, and there were just so many people. I think this club had like maybe 5,000 people in it or something like that. But there were so many people out there that, you know, my family and friends, and that was just really cool to be able to play a show like that and just look out at the crowd and just have so many people you knew. So
Sure.
that was probably the best one. And man, the worst, gosh, I mean, I don't even remember the names of some of these places, but you know,
You just remember the feeling.
yeah, you know, it'd be like fair to fair,
Yeah.
right? Or back then I did a lot of, weirdly, I did a lot of Walmart grand openings.
Okay.
It was interesting, but you know, it'd be like these bigger shows, and then you'd figure out the routing and go, okay, well, to pay to get to there's this podunk town right in the middle that looks like it's got a pretty good bar. So you know, I used to act as my own booking manager too, and I would call them, and you know, I'd use a different name, and you know, say, hey,
Oh, really?
this is so and so, and I manage Chris Blair, and he's coming through town, and you know, it'd be great, you know, and I'd try to sell it that way. Those would be the worst. You know, I should have never done that. It was, and we would show up, and it was like, I mean, the places, some of these places we walked into weren't really even big enough for the band to go in, you know, and it's just like, you know, you got everybody's coming up and say, hey, can you turn it down? Cause you're in a place that holds 20 people. It's like,
People are eating lunch and stuff.
yeah. Yeah. So, but hey, we got paid and it got us to the next gig. So
no question. It's all about the journey. And that's what we're trying to do with the Drive the Music Nashville initiative. We're trying to keep the journey going for so many artists who have similar stories like Chris Blair at the Listening Room Cafe. The Music Venue Alliance in Nashville, there's 15 local independent music venues that are involved. You go to drivethemusicnashville.com, you purchase a t-shirt, and if you want to go see a show, they're being hugely responsible. They're practicing safe and social distancing protocols. The listeningroomcafe.com, they got their schedule of events. They've got a bunch of different things going on. They got great food and drinks. If you want to go see Josh Kerr and Friends, that's one of my favorite acts to see at the Listening Room Cafe. They put on a great show, and they make sure that everybody there is having a good time and a part of the communal vibe that the Listening Room is designed to give off. Chris, I really appreciate you doing this not once but twice for the people. But I do think it's very important that we got together again and talk to people about this. And I really appreciate you hanging out here on the 615 sessions.
Thanks, Buck. I appreciate you, everything you're doing as well. And you're sporting the shirt today, so you appreciate it. And yeah, I just encourage everybody to go check it out. drivethemusicnashville.com, get a shirt, donate, help all of us independent venues. We really appreciate it.